All right, everyone. Well, we first like to start off by thanking everyone for their time today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Denny Newberry, and I'm head of business development for ICE. And I'm joined today by Gary Falkowitz and Chris O'Brien, and collectively the three of us have done numerous webinars that are more education focused normally on a certain subject, but the offering from ICE is so unique that we just felt that we should have the market have a better understanding of why and how this would be beneficial to your group. So before I pass it over to Gary and Chris for introductions, I just want to let everyone know that there's a question panel over to the right where you can type your questions throughout the webinar, and we'll certainly field as many of those as possible on our end. So without further ado, Gary, I'll pass it over to you for an introduction.
All right, thanks, Denny. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to ICE's first webinar. Before I get into the substance of what we're talking about today and how valuable we can be to our law firm clients, I just want to explain who I am and have Chris, one of my business partners, also explain who he and his business are as well. So I'm an attorney, like most of you who are listening right now. I graduated law school in 2005. I tried cases as an assistant district attorney at the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office until 2008. I represented hospitals and doctors at a med-mal firm for a year, and then I moved over to the good side, representing victims in personal injury matters at Parker Wakeman. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Jerry Parker for that opportunity. Now, early in my tenure there, I was promoted to a managing attorney position where I was asked to manage the intake process. And managing the intake process for a law firm of that size was no simple task, especially for someone who had little experience at that time with the business of our field. And for those lawyers on this call, you know that they didn't teach us intake in law school. They didn't teach us how to run a business in law school. But I was afforded the opportunity to learn it from the ground up. So some of my responsibilities there included managing a dedicated intake staff, managing the referral process, increasing our brand. I was a TV spokesperson for the firm, and obviously improving upon all the key performance indicators. I left in 2015 to begin consulting law firms on their intake processes, and nothing brought me more joy than being able to increase a law firm's sign-up percentage by making improvements within the firm. I traveled around the country, worked with some of the biggest spenders within the industry, as well as those law firms looking to grow. And I've loved every second of it. Sometime in 2015, I met up with Chris O'Brien and his Captora team. What we realized was that our passion, our expertise, and our knowledge about intake was unrivaled. And together we began to form an alliance, also now known as ICE, Intake Conversion Experts, whereby we would help law firms convert more cases. And with that, I'd like to introduce one of my business partners, Chris O'Brien.
Gary, thank you very much. So as Gary mentioned, we're kind of the other side of ICE here, and that's myself, Chris O'Brien. I am one of the founders of Captora along with Denny Newberry and Matt Kelly. And we created Captora because we recognized that the legal marketplace needed an application that was dedicated and focused towards helping firms with case intake and really increasing their lead conversion. So over the past 5 years, we've had extremely tremendous success with the Captora application. It's currently the sales engine, intake engine for over 100 of the nation's top law firms, and all that is absolutely going wonderful. But through the past 5 years, myself, Denny, and Matt had continually had kind of conversations about, firms could utilize a service that they could outsource their intake to and not have to go down the path of trying to create their own, top-notch intake group. Because the challenges within these firms, which are all different, but they're real challenges with these firms to be able to go from being a traditional law firm and a great law firm and the culture associated with that to then becoming a great intake department. And really the culture that makes up a great law firm is vastly different than the culture that makes up a great intake department. So as partners at Captora, we've continued to have this conversation of, this is really something that we should do. And as Gary mentioned, about 18 months ago, we met up and our goals were aligned, our vision for intake was aligned, everything from a kind of a business process standpoint was aligned. And so we started to, as he said, form the alliance and have discussions surrounding bringing ICE to the market. And right now, we're tremendously excited to be able to now have been in business for a few months and continue to excel and deliver this service to the marketplace that is ICE, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a few minutes here.
All right, Gary, you want to take back over here?
Yeah, I'm on. Sorry about that. I was muted for a moment. All right, guys, I'm jumping right in here. We're going to go pretty fast, so hope the seatbelt's on a little bit. Here's the life of your case, okay? You got to market, you got to respond, you got to retain, you have to investigate, litigate, and then resolve the case. I'm not here to tell you how to investigate, how to litigate, how to resolve. I'm also not here to tell you how to market, but I do want to bring something up about marketing that's really important. If you're going to spend money, your hard-earned dollars, marketing your services, you're going to have to figure out who you're working with. You're going to have to track the results of your leads. You're going to have to know when and be prepared for when the calls are coming in, and obviously figure out which methods you're going to be using to bring in those leads, whether it's the web, whether it's a third party. Is it TV? Is it SEO, PPC? Are you using the radio, billboard? Obviously questions that you probably ask yourselves before you throw money into the marketplace. But the most important thing I can tell you here is that if you don't have the ability to respond appropriately, it doesn't matter how good your marketing is. Now, from my own experience, this is what I can tell you about marketing. People go to school for this. Good marketers know exactly what makes the phone ring, especially with quality cases. But that's where it ends. And if you're going to ask a marketing company to do more than what they're really good at, then be prepared to live with the consequences. Which gets to my next point, the response and retention to that marketing campaign. Your ability to have new leads responded to immediately, qualified correctly, and retained as fast as possible is directly related to your revenue. Now, everyone on this call and every lawyer that I work with understands the competitive nature of our industry. And we have to constantly look at how to be better than our competitors. And I'll tell you something. Your ability to investigate, to litigate, and resolve cases better than your competitors, that really only has an impact potentially on whether a claimant will call your law firm. The reality is, though, your ability to respond, qualify, and retain better than your competitors will have an immediate impact on your sign-up percentage. Now, 20 years ago, if a claimant contacted a lawyer, the lawyer can say, let me think about it and get back to you. Maybe take the weekend to mull it over. In this day and age, and by the way, that lawyer might still have a pretty good chance of signing that case. In this day and age, the moment you hang up with a claimant without making a decision is the moment the claimant considers other options. We can move on to the next slide here, Denny. So what's really happening at intake? Well, here's your list, guys. Too much time is passing before we're responding. There's a great statistic out there that states your ability to qualify a claimant decreases 10 times after the first 5 minutes. Let me repeat that. Your ability to qualify a claimant decreases 10 times if you don't respond within the first 5 minutes. And I can tell you firsthand from my consulting, from my speaking with lawyers, that most law firms don't respond, usually for at least an hour. You know, and by the way, based upon the time that the lead comes in, that can be 6 hours, it can be 12 hours, it can be 48 hours, and the lead came in on a Friday night. That's just reality, folks. That's what we're dealing with. And the reality of that is it gives us the opportunity, lawyers, the opportunity to take advantage of our competitors' weaknesses. Now, what else is really happening? Our inability to handle a high-volume campaign. Now, what marketers can't do is they tell you that they'll only market between 9 and 5, right? The reality is they're going to market, and you're going to want them to market whenever it is that claimants are going to call, especially qualified claimants. And if you're just sending those calls to an answering service that isn't going to qualify or try to retain, then your ability to convert that lead into a client will drop significantly. And I hope I'm telling you things you already know, or maybe I'm helping you come to those conclusions, because this is reality, folks. Now, the whole idea here is converting as fast as possible. How about this one, not calling back abandoned calls? I love this one. Most firms do not call back abandoned calls. And I'll tell you right now, at ICE, we do call back abandoned calls. And I'd say, why, Gary? That's ridiculous. People hung up. Well, here's your scenario. Someone gets injured in a car accident, and they go to the doctor's office. And then the doctors are waiting in the waiting room. They see on the TV screen a commercial for your law firm. They dial that phone number. Maybe they don't remember the name of your law firm, but they dial the phone number while they're in the waiting room. Phone rings. All of a sudden, the doctor's assistant says, Mr. Falkowitz, the doctor will see you now, and they hang up. That is a potentially high-value or qualified claimant. And if you don't call that abandoned call back, which ICE does, then you lose the opportunity to potentially qualify and retain that case. Now, your next reason on your next aspect of what's really happening at intake, infrequent follow-up attempts. Most firms only follow up a few times per week for a couple of weeks. And that's, by the way, that's the top tier law firms, unfortunately. And that's just not enough. At ICE, we've signed clients that were leads for more than 45 days. And then Chris will talk to you in a little bit about the different types of leads we handle, inbound, outbound, that sort of thing. But I'm telling you right now, we understand from our experience how frequent follow-up is. And we're trying to help those law firms looking to take advantage of their competitors' inadequacies. Now, limited follow-up attempts. Most firms will try for a few days and be done. They'll give up. They'll say, you know what? The claimant contacted us. And by the way, that's what's great about our business, right? It's unethical for us to call a police precinct and say, hey, has anybody been injured today? We really love to try to find some new clients. We really have to rely heavily on our marketing dollars and hope that there's a response to those marketing dollars so that we can handle those callers appropriately. Now, the reality is that those people who are calling us, they may have other responsibilities as well. And as much as we want them to prioritize retaining a law firm, they have other things going on in their life. Maybe they're sick. Maybe they're caring for their mother. Maybe they're on vacation, or they're just not in the mood to talk. Maybe someone's in the hospital. Maybe they're in the hospital getting treatment for the very type of case you want. And you decided that because you tried 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times and they didn't get back to you, then they must not be interested. And I understand this, guys. I understand most law firms, I mean, the heavy majority of the law firms don't have the intake resources to handle intake appropriately, which is why we created ICE in the first place. But if you want to maximize the response to your marketing dollars, you got to put it in the hands of people who can handle that and to follow up appropriately. Now, lack of training here. This is a big issue that we can probably talk about for hours. The fact is, this is a specific responsibility, and it's a dedicated responsibility. And if your staff aren't trained properly to handle the response, to handle how to qualify, to handle answering frequently asked questions, to handle the retention, it's 100% hurting your law firm. Next one here, no immediate decision making. Now this one bothers me a lot because the idea that you may have to call the claimant back, you might as well tell them that the law firm down the block is a better fit. If you cannot make a decision, if you're not empowering your staff to make a decision on the first call when they call your law firm, you're putting yourself at a significant disadvantage to your competitors. Overusing, pending, or investigating, that's the same thing with the no immediate decision making, right? Don't kick the bucket down the road a little bit so that you can figure out whether you, quote, really want this case. It either qualifies or it doesn't, guys. And if you want to win in the game of personal injury, if you want to win in the game of maximizing your revenue, then you better try to prioritize signing up cases or work with a company that will as fast as possible. Now, insufficient resources. This is exactly what it sounds like. If you're going to spend money marketing, you've got to make sure you have the appropriate and adequate resources to handle the response to your marketing dollars, whether that has to do with the hours of operation, whether that has to do with the number of employees, whether it has to do with dedicating responsibilities to your employees, whether it has to do with making electronic signature available for your claimants. It's all about resources, guys. If you're not going to have the appropriate resources in-house, and we'll talk about those options in a moment, then you have to consider maximizing it somewhere else. And obviously the list goes on and on and on. So the next slide here. Why is there a need for ICE? Well, spending is increasing because ROI is extremely high. If I asked everyone in this call whether you would accept, whether you would invest in the stock that would give you 2 to 3 times a return of your initial investment in 3 to 5 years, everyone in this call and everyone I've ever met would say, where do I sign, Gary? I'd sign. Yet, and think about what we do with those investments. We hire a manager. We outsource, we actually outsource the recommendations to another company to actually talk about, to figure out how to buy those stocks, when to sell those stocks, right? Because we want that 2 to 3 or 4 or 5 times a return on our investment. Yet, we don't do that with intake when everyone in this call has at least once in their career received a return on their initial intake investment of 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 times their initial investment. And those aren't exaggerated numbers, guys. Think about it. The guy down the block that you've known for 20 years that calls you because their parent had got mesothelioma, right? How much money did you make on that case, and how much money did you spend to bring that case in? You spend no money to bring that case in. And there are plenty of other cases you only spend, $200, $500, $2,000, $3,000 on, and you're making an attorney's fee of $30,000, $60,000, or $150,000. The return on investment is astronomical. And that's why, by the way, we're getting so much increasing in expenditures. Now, competitive marketplace. I like to use this analogy. If someone's going to buy a jacket, they're going to go online and they're going to look at 4 or 5 different vendors, and they're going to see which one has their jacket, their size, the color they want, right? And they're going to compare each of those companies to figure out where should they get that jacket. The best part of it is that once they choose the vendor and once they buy the jacket, they don't shop anymore. They can easily cancel the services. They can go return the jacket and go find the jacket somewhere else. But the moment that they put their credit card down, the moment that they decide this is the jacket I want, they stop shopping. And claimants really want to stop shopping, but they need to know that they made the right decision. And I think that we as an industry are not doing a good enough job at telling claimants that they made the right decision by calling this particular law firm. Now, current intake options when entering the mass tort space. Let's talk about this. You're either a law firm that's already investing a significant amount of money in mass torts, or you're a law firm thinking about it. What are your options at intake? Let's go through this. Your first option is in-house. And if you have the resources that we just talked about, the staff, the dedicated staff, the hours, right, the ability to sign cases on the first call, then great, that's fantastic. I would say that less than 5% of the law firms that get involved in mass torts have the necessary resources to maximize their marketing dollars with an intake in-house. So here are your other options. You can use a marketing company. Now, I love marketing companies. We work with a handful of marketing companies, and I think they do a fantastic job at marketing. But I will say they also, every single one of them, also know my feelings about intake. They're great at marketing. They know we're great at intake. And if you're going to ask a marketing company to do intake, again, be prepared. What's your third option? Your third option is a law firm who says, I'd like to do the intake for you, but I'm going to ask for 5 or 10 or 15% on the back end. Now, I know a lot of law firms doing it both ways. I know law firms that are asking law firms to do intake, and I know law firms that are doing intake. My only questions for you, and you should think about, is why pay a premium, and in some cases a significant dollar, for something that you can limit the cost of by bringing in a company to do it immediately for a cost up front. You don't need a law firm to do intake. You need a great system. You need great training. You need great resources. And you need experience, which is why we're getting involved in intake. And your fourth option is a company like ICE. I'm sure there are others like ICE out there. We focus specifically on the response, the qualification, and the retention of mass torts cases. Next slide here, Denny. Actually, I think it's the next slide. Okay. This is all you, right?
Pass over to Chris.
Chris.
Yeah, guys. So let's. Gary did a great job kind of laying out what intake is and the pitfalls associated with intake. I want to talk specifically about what ICE is doing day in and day out to be able to provide a service to our law firm clients here. So first and foremost, we provide mass tort live retention. And here's an active listing of the case types at which we are currently, like right now today, handling intakes for. And you'll see some of those are kind of wrapping up and kind of in their last legs. Others are super hot, such as hernia mesh, IBC filters, Xarelto kind of has a comeback going on right now. So here's all the active case types we are currently handling cases for right now. If you are interested in a case type that's not on that list, that is not an issue. We certainly can handle additional case types. They just aren't in our active list right now. I also want to talk to you guys about the type of campaigns that we are working with firms on currently and actively within the call center. So first is going to be a TV cash buy. And this is kind of what I think everybody is very familiar with today. You might go out, purchase some advertising. You'll use your law firm name, your spokesperson, your messaging. You'll pay for the advertisements with cash. From our end, we would answer the call just like we're your law firm. We'd be professional, compassionate, empathetic. We'll spend that time up front with the individual to build that relationship, to make sure that we own that relationship towards the end of the call when it comes towards the qualifying and retaining aspects of it. So do cash type advertising all the time. The other type of TV campaign is a performance buy. And I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with these types of ads, but they're essentially generically branded ads which will either run under the marketer's name, such as Amicus Media Group, or they might run under something like a hernia mesh hotline. And these are ads that are still run on behalf of the specific law firm. There's just not branding associated with it. Those numbers get directed into our call centers, and we usually have a period of time to pre-qualify these leads on behalf of the law firm. And the law firm only pays for any call that pre-qualifies. And the pre-qualification time limit can be something from 30 seconds to 45 seconds, where we in our call center have the ability to be able to ask a quick question or a couple quick questions to this individual to qualify them to make sure that they are a pre-qualified lead on behalf of the firm. So an example of that might be answering an IVC call. Did you or a loved one have an IVC filter implanted inside of you? And if we get a yes, then we proceed and start going through the same building of rapport with the potential client. If that caller answers no, that they have not had a IVC filter implanted inside of them, we very quickly disengage that call so that our client, the law firm, is not charged for that performance or pay-per-call based ad. And now the groups that can run these types of ads, they are very specialized ads. They're very special, or specific agencies that can run these types of ads. If you're interested in those types of ads, certainly let us know and we can put you in contact with one of our partners. But that is a type of ad that we're running, multiples, probably 25 existing campaigns right now on those performance-based ads, and they have been tremendously successful for our clients and really give them a very good value. The third type of campaign, at least for the live retention, is web leads. And here it's all about the chase. What we do is we are set up to have the leads come directly from whatever website that they may be getting generated from directly into our call center, and we make sure that we call that. Gary said earlier, within 5 minutes of receiving that lead, we make sure that we call them the moment that they get received and try to qualify that individual. Of course, the quicker we reach them, the less we have to chase on the back end. If for some reason we're not able to get them right away, then we have a chase routine that is built directly into the application that puts us in the best chance to be able to reach that individual, make sure that we qualify them, and of course retain them on behalf of our law firm clients. And of course all this is essentially about the retention at the end of each of these calls once they qualify. Stale leads, this is probably my favorite conversation to have with firms. First, as we talk about stale leads, let's get on the same page for what the definition of stale is. My definition of stale is any raw lead that you've not been able to reach, or any qualified mail-out package that you sent out that has not come back in. At some point, you as the law firm, you have to give up on chasing these leads. You've got fresh leads that are continually cycling through your group. So if you're trying to reach these individuals and it's been 2-3 weeks and you have not been able to reach these individuals, you have more pressing leads that are coming in right away that you need to take your precious resources and focus on those new leads that are constantly coming in. However, these stale leads, there's still value associated with them, even though it doesn't make sense for your firm to continue to chase these. There's now an option that you have where you can send us your stale leads or any stale mail-out packages. We will continue that chase for you, qualify, and retain the client on your paper. So they are still your case 100%. You're only paying us a fee if we're successful, on qualifying and retaining that case for you. So essentially to the firm, there's absolutely nothing to lose in sending us your stale leads, and essentially it's found money and found cases to your firms. And we have a number of firms that either after 2 or 3 weeks are just sending us all of their stale leads for us to essentially continue to chase, qualify, and retain on behalf of them. And at ICE, we have unique technology, unique processes that allow us to be able to qualify those leads and reach those leads that you guys may not have in-house. Probably one of the most important aspects, of course, of mass torts intake is the ability to quickly qualify each case. And we saw earlier there's a bunch of different case types. So the criteria for each case type, of course, is going to vary. What we're looking for in a Xarelto case is, of course, different than a hernia mesh case. Also, each firm has different criteria that they look for in each of their case types. So as an example, if you were doing a Xarelto case, what we do is we build the questionnaire into our software. which allows us to build in not only the questions that you need to capture about that intake, but also your specific criteria is embedded directly into the script that's presented to our agents, so that the software is dictating whether the case is a qualify or a disqualify. So there's no chance that our reps are going to sign a case that doesn't meet your firm's specific criteria. To give you an example here of a Xarelto case, we might start the call off with, have you or a loved one taken Xarelto? Of course, if they haven't taken Xarelto, it's not going to qualify. If they have, then the questionnaire would proceed. A next question might be, have you or a loved one suffered a bleeding event, stroke, heart attack, or any other list of injuries as a result of taking Xarelto? If they've said no, there's no injury. We would disqualify. If they say yes, it continues to go on. A next question may be, when did the injury occur? If the caller says, oh, it was in 2008, well, our technology knows that if it was prior to 2011, any of those cases are going to disqualify because Xarelto came to the market in 2011. So the point behind this is the technology is built in so that the agents are walking through not only collecting the information that is required for you guys to appropriately pursue these claims, but also we have the qualification and disqualification that are built directly into the questionnaires or embedded so that we are only signing cases that meet your firm's criteria. And that's critically important to make sure that we're not wasting your time and we're not wasting the caller's time. We're just focusing on what needs to be signed up that meets your criteria. And our results. So top line, there's 1,200 qualified, retained claimants in the past 4 months. We started essentially kicked this company off January 1, so it's really only been 3.5 months. Already have 1,200 signed retainers on behalf of our clients. And last month, we almost signed up 500 alone. So the trajectory on our results is just screaming towards the sky, which is fantastic. Currently, we're working with 30 law firm clients. Some of them are the biggest, most respected mass tort firms in the country. Others are very small groups that want to be able to get into the mass torts world and sign up cases and then refer them to the big boys, but we handle all aspects of it. Probably the thing that we're most proud of and is really the biggest compliment to our services thus far is that all of our clients have either come from repeat business or from referrals from our existing clients. This is really the first mass market that we've done for ICE is this webinar here today, and I think it's a true testament to the service that we're providing and a real compliment to us that we have the repeat business and the referrals to their friends to be able to come to ICE. Down at the bottom of the screen, there's 2 examples of the outputs that you would receive as an ICE client. Over on the left-hand side, you see the intake details. That's simply an output of the questionnaire that we would be asking on your behalf as we go through, and you get a complete output of every single intake that we took on your behalf, and that would be contact information, questions and answered, true transcript of everything that occurred. And on the right side is a daily intake report that would show you the number of intakes that we handled on your behalf within the day, number of signed retainers that day, retainers sent, total intakes, retained intakes, and then total sign-up packages that are currently outstanding. So great result, nice transparency to the firms that we're working with so that they have access directly to what's going on within the ICE call center.
All right, Gary, I think you're back up to bring us home here.
All right, guys. I appreciate everyone's hanging on just for almost done a few more minutes here. And thanks, Chris. That's exactly, if you guys couldn't tell, this was not thought up and implemented overnight. It requires time, it requires nurturing, and it requires efficient processes. And I'd like to think that that's exactly what we created. So our intake best practices, and I'll go pretty quickly here. Our follow-up procedures, they're frequent, they're prolonged. Our methods of communication are, we're able to text claimants, we call claimants. There's no, I'm going to skip a little bit. I'm going to go back and forth here. We don't robocall. We convey urgency on the telephone. I think that's important. And some of these, by the way, some of these are just hints for you guys, right? Go back, use it to the best of your ability. But the reality is, if you want to maximize, a mass tort campaign, or you want someone to look over the stale leads, this is what we're using every single day, every single intake specialist. We're pushing towards immediate retention. We're advocating. This is important. We're advocating the availability of attorneys when necessary. Ask yourself, how many times have you run into a campaign where you ask someone else to do the intake, and they actually said to you, hey, this claimant would like to speak to someone at the law firm? Because if they never said that to you, then what's going on with those cases? because I know from my own personal experience and from working with other law firms, there are plenty of claimants every once in a while that just need to get that comfort level, and they'd like to get a lawyer, get some answers from a lawyer. And on our intake specialists, they're not lawyers, and they're not trained to answer legal questions. And that's a good thing. You don't want legal intake specialists to answer legal questions, right? So we get our law firm clients involved, and we let them know, hey, this claimant has a question about, this fee agreement or that, and you help in the process. And for you, it's a win-win situation because you're putting yourself in a better situation to maximize the retention. We use brag lines. We literally will brag on behalf of our law firm. We'll get a few facts that we ask on every onboarding call to find out what can we say to claimants to make sure, to reassure them that they did the right thing by calling this law firm. Our intake specialists get training on what to say it, how to build relationships, how to answer frequently asked questions. And here's something interesting for you. Sometimes we schedule our calls based upon when deliveries may be made. And I'm talking about, there are some older clientele or claimants, if you're talking about the IVC filter perhaps, where they don't want to sign something electronically, which, by the way, is obviously something we offer, but they don't want to sign something electronically. We have to send out a mail out. Well, we'll schedule our call back because we track every mail out to call when the claimant gets that mailing. Something for you to be aware of for sure. Next one here, Denny. So why ICE? Okay. First of all, intake and retention is our sole focus. Okay, that's what we do. I'm not here to tell you that we market. I'm not here to tell you we're going to order medical records. We have a specialty. It is responding, qualifying, and retaining cases for our law firms. Number two, you get your retainers immediately. Now, our company name is never used. We never hold a retainer. As an attorney, I'm acutely aware of the responsibilities associated with retention. You either get retained via priority mail, where it comes directly back to your office, or, and by the way, we'll get notice of that retention through our tracking system, or you get an email with a signed retainer, and we're just copied on that email. Or I should say we're blind copied on that email. So those retainers come directly back to your office. There's no breakage in the intake process. Here's something interesting I think everyone should be aware of. There's no additional cost for talk time. I know a lot of people, well, how much is it per minute, and what if you guys are on the call longer than necessary? The reality is we're highly incentivized to retain cases on behalf of our law firm clients, and it's not based upon how much time we're on the phone. We'll call for as long as we have to call. We'll be on the phone for as long as we have to ensure or put ourselves in the best position to retain a case on behalf of our law firm client. Our pricing model is dependent on that, because just like you, we only get paid if we're successful. Now, obviously, there's a nominal cost to leads that come our way. There's a nominal cost to I'm losing my train of thought here for a moment, for setup processes. But the reality is our cost is dependent upon retention, and that's something that everyone on this phone is aware of, because it's almost like a contingency fee cost. I think that's it for me, Denny. I want to, and before you finish up, I guess I'll just say thank you very much to everyone who joined the call today. If you're looking to get involved in mass torts, this is what we do. If you're looking to outsource your intake, this is what we do. And I'll just hand it off to Denny right now.